everybody to battle stations. Or something.
So that first video did pretty well, innit? If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I was not expecting my when something is difficult to translate video to do anywhere near as well as it has. I know I slipped in that give me some suggestions bit at the end, but like, I don't think anyone would actually do it. For those who haven't seen the first video, let me give you a very quick, concise and crispy rundown. Something being difficult to translate is equal to or greater than a plot detail, concept or joke which only really makes sense in the original language, like a Japanese character not being able to understand something being said or written in English. In these videos, I take a look at how translation teams get around these problems, whether that's changing around some things, leaving it alone if it can still make sense in the English context, or leaving it alone even when it makes no sense for some reason. So let's get started with a movie that has been living in my head rent-free like a curse since I watched it. Chainsaw Man Reze Arc is not only a 10 out of 10 movie that I've seen 4 times, and everyone who's watching this video should see, please. It is also a movie with a scene that seems difficult to translate on the surface, but has a simple workaround when you really think about it. Now, since this movie just came out, I obviously have no footage of this scene, and to obtain said footage, I would have to use some frowned upon methods. So you're just gonna have to trust me on this one, please, please, please. In this scene, Reze and Denji Chainsaw Man are pretending to be in class, and she asks him 2 questions. 1 + 1, which he gets correct, and what this phrase means in English, which he doesn't know the answer to, obviously. Now, on the surface, this seems like a pretty technical scene to translate, but in the dub version of this scene, Denji just answers 2 again, and Reze calls him silly. Denji not being able to read English can still make sense in the dub context, since we can just assume he never learned how to because of his circumstances growing up. I mean, he can't read most kanji, so it's not out of the question to assume that dub Denji can't read a lot of English. Having him give the same answer hoping it's right also adds a layer of charm and humour to this scene in my opinion. So the Chainsaw Man dub gets a solid B for changing the dialogue to fit nice and neatly into an English context. Damn. Now I want to go watch the movie 5 more times. So luckily for the Chainsaw Man team, they only had 1 slightly technical scene they had to find a way around. But this next piece of media had to somehow translate an important wordplay puzzle which hinges on a Japanese pun. So let's take a look at how they approach this.
The precocious little girl is Pearl Faye. She's Maya's cousin, and good lord is she an annoying bitch.
The 5th case of the 3rd Ace Attorney game has a lot of elements in it. One of those being really technical Japanese wordplay, which is a key component to solving part of the case. Essentially, Pearl's Faye mother Morgan Faye wants to murder Maya Faye, leaving Pearl Faye to become the next master of the Korean channeling technique because she's bitter and wants her branch family to become the main family. She needs her 9-year-old daughter to carry out her murder plan because she's kinda in prison for helping plan a different murder in the last game. Oops! Anywho, Morgan uses a letter to communicate her plan to Pearl, and in this letter there's a specific phrase which creates a difficult to translate puzzle. In the Japanese version, the last part of the letter reads, "Put a splendid end to the head of the house." Much like Denji Chainsaw Man, Pearl can't read all kanji, so she ends up mistaking these 2 parts. This first part, kare, she misreads as kare, and the second part, indo, she misreads as indo. So Pearl basically thought the letter said, "Throw Indian curry on the Master Scroll," which she does, and helps Phoenix figure out her involvement in the case. Now, when localizing this game, there is no shot anyone who doesn't know Japanese is figuring this out. So they had to figure out a way to change the wordplay to better suit English-speaking audiences. They ended up with "Bravely roast a master in the fire of Hades and bring our vengeance to fruition." In the English translation, Pearl read gravely as gravy and assumed roast meant food, so instead of Indian curry, she throws gravy on the Master Scroll.
Gravely sounded like gravy, so I got pretty confused about what to do.
I think this is just as clever as the Japanese version. The fact that I didn't even consider the fact that it might have been different in the original shows just how well they adapted this word puzzle. I got a fair few comments about Great Ace Attorney and the Edge Earth games for having some really good workarounds with difficult to translate scenes. I haven't got around to playing those games yet, but I am really excited to see them when I do. But for now, Ace Attorney gets an A for some really clever wordplay. So far, we've looked at a small part of a scene and a piece of wordplay which is hard to translate. But what do you do when a chunk of the story is hard to translate?
And look at that ruffian, assaulting the creamy texture. I should call the police.
In the 3rd Yokai Watch game, the main character moves from Japan to America because his dad gets a new job. So half of that game is set in an English-speaking country, complete with American dollars and English-speaking locals. When switching characters, there's even a cute little globe transition. So what's the problem, you may ask? Assuming you're all still here? Well, when the other games in the anime got localized, they made it very vague which country it was set in. The anime seemed to be set in America, and versions of the game had the in-game currency changed to whichever country you bought the game in. Now, I'm pretty sure they don't explicitly state which country Yokai Watch takes place in outside of Japan, so they really could have just gaslit everyone and told them it was always set in Japan and we were stupid for thinking otherwise. But instead of going the gaslight route, they make a lot of changes to fit this game within this mess they got themselves into. So let's do a lightning round of the top 5 changes in this localization. If you want a really in-depth look at all the changes, check out Censored Gaming's video on it, it's really good. Changing America to BBQ. The name's got that stupid Yokai Watch dub charm to it and gets around the country issue very nicely. Changing English to a really thick southern accent. In the Japanese version, they speak English and the main character doesn't understand them. You know the drill by now, that's a big no-no in the dub, so they change it to a southern accent, which works perfectly well since this issue gets solved pretty easily due to a translation yokai. The logo change. I guess they wanted to make it more western or something. It looks nice, I enjoy seeing it. It makes my eyes glitter. The switching character change. Before it was the globe, but we gotta be ambiguous! So it was changed to the respective towns. Now that's dedication to the craft. The currency change. Now it's BBQ bucks instead of dollars. Yeah, I mean, that's a change they had to make, to be fair. Yeah, I respect it. I'm a big Yokai Watch fan, by the way. I don't know if I made that very clear in this segment. I really hope we get 4 and Y Academy someday, but I won't hold my breath. But back to translations, I think they could have gotten away with just pretending it was always in Japan, but they really did make an effort to change it. These changes are kind of controversial, and I'm personally not a fan of some of the dub changes, but for what the localization were trying to do, I think they did it well. So they can have an A, the I see you tier. I think if we're talking objectively, the Yokai Watch dub team had the most heavy lifting to do out of the examples we've looked at so far, having to change a lot of the dialogue and the graphics. But the final piece of media I want to look at today had over 20 episodes with a plethora of difficult to translate segments. So let's see if the dub team managed to pull it off.
Domestic violence.
The thing about Nichijou is that it's so funny that most of its jokes transcend the language barrier. A lot of the jokes are either visual or written in a way that they can work no matter the language. However, there are also a good amount of jokes in Nichijou that include a lot of Japanese puns and culture. At least once in each episode, there will be a joke that simply doesn't translate well to different languages. Despite this fact, the Nichijou dub team were actually able to change up a good few and sprinkle in some dialogue to make a decent amount of these work. So let's take a peek at a couple. In the last segment of episode 14, Mio and Yuko get into a massive and hilarious argument over lunch. Mio asks for yakisoba, but Yuko mishears her and buys yakisaba.
Could you repeat that one more time, please? Yakisoba, right? I said yakisoba!
Now, the funny thing about this scene is some localizations actually change it. The official Crunchyroll subtitles and manga change it to fried macaroni. And like, yeah, it works. Macaroni and mackerel do sound similar, but what the hell is fried macaroni? The official dub doesn't change it though, and simply adds this line.
Don't act like it's not a big deal! I asked for noodles and you gave me a fried fish!
The only problem with translating this pun would have been non-Japanese viewers not knowing what yakisoba or yakisaba is. So by sliding this line in there, we solved that problem, and everyone can enjoy this scene as intended. Good localization, 10 out of 10. Now take a look at this scene.
今から英語言ったら負けね。オッケー。あ、今ミオちゃん英語言った。スタートって言ってないからセーフだよ。じゃあスタートって言う前にいっぱい英語言っとくかな。いっぱい英語知ってるの？Okay.
I actually got a comment explaining that this scene only really works because of the common use of English loanwords in Japan. Once English stops being loanwords and becomes the main language the characters are speaking, the joker doesn't make much sense. The dub team realized this and decided to just rewrite the whole scene, changing the game to first person who speaks losers. Personally, I think the scene is slightly less funny in the dub, but the awkward silence is still just as loud, and the way they changed the scene was really the only option they had aside from just leaving it as it is, which I think actually would have been kind of funny despite it making no sense. But Nichijou basically never makes sense, so what's new? Dubbing Nichijou could not have been an easy task. If difficult to translate was in the dictionary, it would just be a hyperlink to all 26 episodes of the show. Given that, I can fully understand the team's decision to just leave some of the jokes as they are, since it not only helps keep authenticity, but also like How the hell are you going to translate this drawing game segment into English? Nichijou has some of the best comedy in anime, even if sometimes I would scratch my head at the Helvetica standard segments. The voice actors are insanely talented, and the scriptwriters did a really good job at translating as many jokes as possible and knowing when to leave things as they are. So they get the certified A+ tier for excellent, supreme, super effort. So those are all the difficult to translate scenes I wanted to discuss this time around. Much like the first video, which you should watch if you haven't already, I really enjoyed making this one. I'm really interested in localization differences, and from reading the comments on the last video, I'm definitely not alone in that. So if you made it this far, you should comment any difficult to translate scenes in your favorite media if you want. I'll read as many as I can and it will help me make a hypothetical part 3. But for now, we have to say goodbye. I was gonna shout you to subscribe, but honestly I'm kinda tired and I don't really have it in me right now. Like, subscribe, please!